the fact that I'm sitting here telling you in a coherent way my story kind of implies that there is somewhat of a happy ending. And I don't believe it gives anything away by saying I did not go to prison, but I also did not rat on anybody. And if you are surprised by that statement, I am equally, if not infinitely more surprised because when I showed up to my sentencing date, the I'm standing next to my court appointed lawyer, this like heart of gold, overworked guy. And the federal prosecutor stands up and they ask this judge, we want this case to be dismissed. And even the judge was like, what? What are you talking about? They're like, we want this case to be dismissed. And then they dismissed it. And the court appointed lawyer pulled me to a side room. He was like, what, what did you do? I was like, I don't, but I went to a bunch of tweakers. It's all conspiracy theories. They all think they can help you, but nobody can do shit. You know what? He's like, I've been part of hundreds, if not thousands of cases. I've never seen that before. And I'm just like, I don't know. He's like, kid, you better get out of here. And I should never see you here again. So
welcome to the Queer Quest podcast, your beacon of light and sprinkle of glitter in the queer community. I'm your host, Cristiano Green, CEO and founder of Queer Quest and a transformation coach for queer individuals. And together, we're embarking on a journey of transformation. Each week, we bring you a new training topic or connecting with visionary queer leaders in healing and coaching, diving deep into conversations that inspire growth, celebrate diversity, and empower you to live authentically. So wherever you are, settle in and let's get ready to unlock the vibrant potential within. This is where your quest begins. Hello, all you fabulous souls, and welcome to another episode of the Queer Quest podcast. I'm your host, Cristiano Green, the CEO and founder of Queer Quest and a transformation coach for people in the queer community. So this week on the podcast, if you're watching the video, you'll see that I am not on my own. But obviously, if you're listening to my voice, you won't know that until we introduce this beautiful guest that we've got here today. So we have got on the podcast today, Sean Hemeon, who is a actor, a writer, and an artist. Welcome to the podcast.
yay. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Yay.
Well, Sean, we've got a lot to cover today because you have a lot of different talents and skills, and obviously, you're what we call a triple threat in the entertainment industry. But with the fact that you are an actor, we haven't actually had an actor on the podcast. And I know that you're in some big shows. So, do you want to talk us a little bit about your acting career and obviously what got you into it and what's kept you?
Yeah.
You've been doing it for about 18 years, I heard.
Long time. I mean, technically, like my whole life, but professionally, yes, the last 15, 18 years. And not that this matters this day and age, which is very cool, but I'm an out gay actor, but it's amazing how we live in a world where that doesn't matter as much. They definitely, when I do castings, they'll say in the breakdown, if it's an LGBT role, they prefer LGBT actors. So they kind of do it that way now. But sometimes it just doesn't matter, which is, 10 years ago, I was like, do I tell the industry? I mean, I was out to my friends, but anyway, just a shout out for that because that's pretty cool. But yeah. Well,
That's actually a good topic to actually talk about because I bet you a lot of people would be curious with it because I also would have, like, you see a lot of roles on TV for LGBT people and you find out that the actors behind them obviously a lot of them aren't, or it could be a mixture, right? Or can be or can't be. So yeah, it's a thing nowadays that they prefer you to be LGBT if you're going for a role that is that.
yeah, but they do that for other things as well. Other things as well. It's almost like it's like pondering the question if Brokeback Mountain was made today. Now, would people be pissed off if it was straight actors again, or would they actually expect it to be Jonathan Bailey and Matt Bomer? So because part of the reason that those guys were up for an Oscar was because they were so brave in doing those gay sex scenes. It was like, come on, guys. So that's part of the whole idea of the culture we live in. which, it's an interesting thing to think about because I really don't know the answer to that. Maybe one of the actors would be straight and maybe one would be gay. I don't know. But generally, people are trying to play it safer, meaning if it's an LGBT main actor, I should say that main actor, like a recurring series regular or like the star of the film playing a gay specific storyline, then they try to make them gay. But like,
There's
I
that new
mean,
movie out which is I think called Queer, and I think it also. I mean, I heard about it because they have the main actor is that guy from Taken. What's his name? He's in
oh,
the movie, and he's obviously not.
wait, Taken like Liam Neeson?
That's the guy. He's the head main actor of this new movie Queer that's coming out this year, or was that some film festivals and stuff like that? I,
Yeah, so it still happens. It still happens. I mean, he's very much not gay. I mean, I'm saying this thinking, also realizing. So I just worked on 911, which is a show, here in the States on ABC. It's a Ryan Murphy show, but
I've heard of it only when it's got Angela Bassett in it, and
I was just gonna say, I was just about to say, most people would recognize it because of Angela Bassett. I mean, she's like this queen, and
was, yeah.
you best believe when I booked this, that was and most of my work was with her. So I was working opposite her. I mean, I was immediately like, I mean, the first day I was just shitting bricks, like, this is Angela Bassett, you guys. This is the queen. But I definitely showed up, and I think I delivered. But I was gonna say on that show. Oh, I forgot the character's name, but one of the series regulars has a gay storyline, and he's definitely a very straight man. He's this straight, good-looking Brit. I think the actor's name is Oliver something, and I think his character's name's like Buck. Anyway, he and the other guy, they're both very straight, but they have a gay storyline. So I'm saying like it does happen, but
Doesn't happen, and then
if yeah, well, but I think if it's like the story is like very much saying something about gay. You know, then again, I'm saying all this, and then we have Queer out, like you said, with Daniel Craig, not Liam Neeson. That's what you was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So who knows? Maybe Brokeback Mountain then therefore would still be played with straight guys. That's how we got there. We explored a topic, realizing that nope, we don't. It's beautiful that we live in a world where, I don't have to say I'm out or not out. That's the moral of this winded thing we just went on. But hey, at the end of it, I will say this. I do feel like out or not out, I feel like I should be able to play whatever, because that's what acting is. We're playing a
right.
character.
The role is you kind of stepping outside of who you are and stepping into the character and really kind of like owning that energetically, physically, mentally, and
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like just that I should have the opportunity to do any kind of character that I would physically play. And,
yeah.
yeah, and sexuality is something that doesn't is not dependent on physicality. So I'm speaking obviously of race and those kinds of things that don't make any sense to play.
But do you find then as a gay actor that you still get roles that are straight, or do you find that sometimes you're getting typecast, whether that's good or bad, into those kinds of roles?
Um It's I'd say it's half and half, and the reason it's half and half is because, okay, so, I mean, I don't know how if most people, I assume, know how it works for me to, like, book a role, like, the writers write the show, they give it to the producers who give it to the casting directors who look through it, and they look at all the roles they need to cast, and then they go out and they get, like, 6 options for each, then they show the producers, and then they're like, "Great." So, I think just in the nature of the casting director's working world, they may get stuck in thinking like, I have this LGBT actor, and I'm only going to put him as the LGBT actor, and they may do that for
Yeah.
economical reasons or any kind of reason. But then another actor, or no, sorry, another casting director who I initially saw as like, for example, 911. I play a federal prosecutor. Doesn't matter, not gay or straight. I play a villain. Like it has nothing to do. Yeah, so that casting director is gonna see me has nothing to do with LGBT. So they may see me in that light. Like, okay, this guy's a great villain, so let's keep giving him more of those. So I think it's just dependent upon um, the casting directors and trying to break through and give them new insights to what I could do.
I see. And so then do you find as well that like when you're, going for roles, again, do you get cast in similar roles? Like you're a villain, and so then the other roles will be like, oh, okay, he can play a villain, so we're going to put him in that role. Or is it just like ever evolving? Like, yes, that might happen until someone sees a different aspect of me and what I can do.
A little bit of both. I think it's just the casting, well, it also, I mean, it also helps that the actor, like, I landed that villain arc really well. I seem to be really good at that. This actor over there is always playing sunshine and roses, and they do that extremely well. So it may just be on one level the nature of our ability and our talent and that kind of thing. Um, but from, like, again, 911, I get really good tape and I can show that to a casting person who hasn't seen me before, but they have a similar role, which just happens to be villainish. Then they would see me for that. So it kind of just happens by default. But I, I think casting and producers, like, they're smart. They can see talent when it is, so they're going to give opportunities for people to try to expand further outside of what they think they normally do. Or I just ask, I get my reps to be like, oh my gosh, I want to do this role. Like, can you ask them, please? And then I'll send them some tape, and then they'll see me differently, and then they'll hire me or not hire me.
You not hire you. Okay.
So you said it's a numbers game. Like, I don't even want to tell you how many times I've auditioned, but every actor says that. So it's truly a gift when we actually book work, I think.
Nice. And what do you do then outside of that? So, like I said, you've been trying for 18 years, but of course, most actors don't have a role that they're always in full time for eight.
So yeah, what does I mean?
What
Yeah,
does the actor do in out on the time when he needs to get a job and make some money and pay his rent and all those things?
yeah. I mean, I've had friends do everything. I've had friends, nanny through the years, cater, servers, assistant job. Like, I mean, everything, because it really is. It takes an entrepreneurial spirit.
To keep
You,
going, right?
yeah. Um, the Golden Globes just happened, I guess, last week or week and a half ago, and
Yeah.
the host made a joke. She was like, "Welcome to all the hardest working people in Hollywood. Make sure to thank your servers." Like, she was making a joke that because all the servers are usually actors. Like,
So they're all in that realm, wishing that they were the ones sitting at the table.
yeah, and that's I mean, there's lists of celebrities that their names that were former bartenders or DJs, or like the list goes on. I was fortunate. I mean, I did all that probably at some point, but I fell into way early on. I fell into being a gallery director. I was like, this is cool. I'm going to sell art. I would do this anyway, in between acting jobs, just because I really like talking about art. And I didn't. I loved selling art, and I really wanted to buy my artist's work, but I didn't have $10,000. So it's like, all right, I'm going to go home and I'm going to paint it myself, which was stupid because, of course, I quickly realized why I'm paying him $10,000. But at the same time, I also realized, wow, I really love this. And so I started painting for myself. And this is 12 years ago at this point. And, the gallery I was working at, they really saw something in me and were very great. That really sweet about, making me an artist in residence. And so I didn't care about selling work. I started selling work, but painting became something that I started doing for myself to stay sane in between all the acting stuff. And then in the last 5 or 6 years, people can see my work on my website, but whatever. But like, that really blew up. And so I have this whole other thing that I was doing that brought, joy to my life in between the acting that has now led to this whole other career. And it's been, and that's how writing happened too. It's the same thing. It's just, there's so many the acting is so fickle. She is fickle. She is like, you are aiming to get that series regular.
Like great relationship, I can imagine. I love her when she's treating me well, and I hate her when she's dry.
Oh, girl. She is, oof. She can be rough, 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 rough. You can have a lot of success and then none, and then she goes all over the place. At least where I am, because there's like this place where you're just starting out, And then there's everybody else, and we're all in the middle. And, the industry may know who we are, but nobody out there in the world knows who we are. You may recognize some of us, like, oh, that was the guy that did the thing and the thing, but nobody knows our name, and
Yeah.
that's the people trudging along. And then something happens. Something catapults you through the final threshold, like usually obviously a role, or a TV show that's a hit, and then you're up there, meaning like you don't have to audition anymore because you're being offered roles. Like your financial future is clearly set
Named at that point.
for people, yeah. And then the threshold above that would be people know your name even there in Bali. Like, I don't know, international or
Somebody just LA, people know who you're.
outside of just, yeah, outside of some like American television show, which I'm sure you guys obviously watch and get there. But I'm just saying, like, and so for me, I like to think that threshold, just I'm hitting it, and I'm banging my head on it, and it's hurting, but things are happening, things are breaking through. And so, but in order to keep my sanity, this is why, thank God, I have painting for myself. Thank God I have writing. And I reached out to you because that turned into this memoir that I'm gonna have published, which who knows what that's gonna do.
Yeah.
But what another good
Little drug lord, right?
the good little drug lord.
Give
We're
everyone
going to memoir.
this is what the member's all about because it's a juicy title, yeah.
Yeah, it is a juicy title, but when I tell you like the one line premise, it makes sense because, and this is nonfiction. This is my life. I have been sober almost 20 years, so this is more than 20 years ago. I know I look I got so happy
Back in Virginia.
back in Virginia. DC was actually, that was my playground. I was like, but the Good Little Druglord is about a gay Mormon drug dealing narc for the federal government. It's about this rise and fall of,
Yeah.
to yeah, to sort of
The Grace played.
the greatest role. I mean, honestly, I will say this, and they call this is there's a clinical term for this because it is actually a form of disassociation. But I have to tell you, uh, regularly did I say and look at what was happening, sometimes in slow motion, as like very traumatic things were happening. I was able to say to myself, "Oh, this happens in the movies." So, so I clocked it even, the whole year and a half I was out there. Um, but so I go forward in time in this rise and fall, and there's things that happened out there that I did not believe I was the kind of person would ever do these certain things. So I go backwards in time in the book because I'm trying to understand what happened, like where I came from, and
Where step and where it ended is
yeah, and everybody has a general idea of Mormonism, and everybody generally understands that Mormonism plus gay equals very, very, very bad. Everybody, again, they
it's
totally,
disowned from your family, things like that is what I would hear if you know that.
absolutely, yes, yes, all of that. It's getting better, but even though I was not like, oh, I should say my father was Irish Catholic and not Mormon, so that kind of helped out the situation. But even though my mother did not kick me out, there is still a level of disassociation and overwhelm on her part, so it feels like I was abandoned because 'cause I'm pretty much
Well, and more than just physically, right? Mentally, emotionally, you can be.
well, well, I start the book at 19, and after a horrific self-harm episode, and, it's a great place to start, guys. I swear to you, it's a good read. I probably, but when I came out to her at 19, I the first thing she said to me was, like, in a panicked tone, she was like, "Do you have AIDS?"
Oh God.
I'm like, "What? Mom, no. What?" And then she sort of, like, chokes on her tears again and starts crying, and she's like, "I'm not gonna have grandkids." And in my mind, I'm like, what this is nothing to like making it all about yourself, number one, too, but just the total ignorance around all of that. It was the absurdity of it. So that's just an example of,
And is that common in like religions like Mormonism, where like they are so like ignorant to realities of things because they shun those things, so then they don't want you to know or understand or get to know people who are in that kind of community?
absolutely, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I think the So, I mean, where do they end up getting their ideas about what a homosexual person is? From their church leaders or from, people talking shit from wherever. I mean,
Yeah.
or what they choose to see on whatever media outlet. The thing that changes people's minds more than anything is when their kid is gay or their coworker is gay. I mean, you hear stories all the time, like,
People from that community
um,
and such. I've
my God,
yeah.
like,
Well said.
I mean,
Oh my God.
exactly. I'll give this example too. Like my husband's from Dallas, Texas, and you don't have to be American to know Texas. Okay, well that's conservative, that's cowboy country, and so when he came out, and another fellow his age also came out in his church, in his very Baptist church, the pastor decided to stick by them, which sent a rift. Like majority of his church left. It was a very very hard time for the church and the community, but majority left. And today it's 4 times the size it ever was. Just as an example of what can happen.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So um, I did not expect to talk about that, but there we go.
Where we go on the podcast, we go left, right, up and down. Okay, then. And so then, of course, in the book, you mentioned that, like, you got into this realm of, I don't know, like you said, the good little drug lord. So you were in that world, and then, of course, worked with the federal government. So tell us, like, I heard before, but give us a little bit of an overview of, like, get into a place, into a situation like that, and then ultimately how you got out of it.
I will do yes. Obviously reading the book, you'll get a more in-depth,
Cool.
thrilling. I will say I definitely I will say this. When I sat down to write this, I said out loud to myself, ugh, I don't want this to be sad. And I was like, oh, that's a great title. And so for the longest time, the title was I don't want this to be sad, because so much of it could be, morose and just like a drag and a victim. And I think that's also why it took me so long to get to a place to write it in a way that was not victim-y, because I'm not that person anymore. So I really didn't want it to be sad. So some memoirs you read and it's like masturbatory. It's like, oh, look what happened to me, and I just did not want to do that. And so I tried to write it in as thrilling way as possible. So it actually reads like fiction. It reads like I wrote a story about a young gay man who becomes a, a major drug dealer in Washington, D.C.
Are you ready to embark on a journey of transformation that's uniquely yours? Welcome to QueerQuest, the world's first and best personal development platform created by and for the queer community. Imagine a space where your authenticity isn't just accepted, it's celebrated. A place where you can grow, learn, and thrive alongside a vibrant community that understands you. At QueerQuest, we're more than just a platform. We're a family. Connect with like-minded individuals, share your stories, and empower each other to reach new heights. Our tailored courses are designed to address the unique experiences of the queer community, from self-love and confidence building to career advancement and beyond. We've got you covered. It's time to step into your power and transform your journey. Join us today at courses.queerquest.vip, see what we're all about, and sign up to begin your quest.
But when I dated my drug dealer boyfriend, I did not set out to do.
How every love story starts. When I dated my love, drug dealer,
I just liked that, I was so 22 at this point, and 21, 22. I was already hitting the clubs in DC. I was already getting free coke. I was already getting all the free drugs I wanted, and I was already definitely blacking out from alcohol. Again, I don't have to tell you, gay Mormon, you get it. I thought I was living in a world that even the God that existed hated who I was because he cursed me with gayness. So, so I and I had just so, and I'll say this too, in high school, I had an undercover boyfriend. I was a total cliche. I was like homecoming court, football captain, and I was doing my best friend the whole time and madly in love with him. And so at 19, he left me for somebody else in college, and it was devastating because he was my world, right? He's the thing that saved me, made me feel like everything was all right in the world. You know, he was the bulwark. He was, if he feels so right, then this Mormon stuff is clearly wrong. But when that was taken away, I was like, peace out. I'm going to go do drugs because I want to feel like this all the time. So, hey, and what better way to do that than dating a drug dealer who can give me all the drugs I want whenever I want? So, I don't have a problem. I can go to theater school and I can do this on the weekend. So there you go. I'm great. I'm fine.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
no consequences will happen to me, none at all. And so, what ended up happening was, um, obviously my drug addiction increased and he couldn't keep up with it. And I thought that he sucked at drug dealing, even though he, you know, we lived in hotels. He made money. This is, by the way, this is like the gay scene of DC. This is like the circuit parties, that go up and down the Eastern Seaboard, and they're all over. I mean, we still have them, but
I think this is way in the Sydney scene. So I very much
absolute, I don't even
similar the example of growing up in
same thing.
yeah
Same thing.
every weekend. Weekends Wednesday to Monday kind of thing.
Yeah, and so you go to those circuit parties, and I don't know if you or listeners have been, you can definitely tell the ones that, live normal lives and then they party their asses off and have fun and do whatever for those few days, and then they go home and that kind of stuff. But then you can also tell, like, oh, that person actually, well, that's a tweak. This person, like, yeah, my whole last year and a half, I definitely did not draw a sober breath. I forgot what it was like to be sober, but I thought I could do dealing better than this boyfriend. So when I broke up with him, I started trying to take his business, and he hated that so much that he got me kicked out of the club. He got me, at the time, what I thought he was the one that ratted on me and got me arrested. He did not, but I had a suspended license because, I fell asleep at the wheel and drove it under a Mack truck. How about that? And then didn't show up for court. Um, so it was the arrest that actually, excuse me, that that turned everything, that escalated everything. Because what happened, when you're arrested in Washington D.C., obviously nation's capital,
Oh yeah.
they automatically charge everything federally, and which ups everything, and I had possession with intent to distribute. So this was like 10 plus years. I was effed. I was screwed. And so the federal agents knew that. And so they, in so many words, were saying I needed to keep doing what I was doing in order to give them enough intel to get my case dismissed.
If you give them,
And I had
then we'll let you off with a little slap on the wrist.
exactly, exactly. So I was like trying to talk in quotations to them too. I was like, nobody's gonna want to deal with me because they all are gonna figure out that I was arrested. So how do I do this? They were like, figure it out. And I was like, fuck. And I had seen enough movies to know that, like, I'm not a rat. I'm not, I can't live with that. I'm not a rat. I don't know. I debated that all the time. Um, and, but this forced me to have to deal more drugs, but like at a bigger amount, because the suppliers that I needed to get info on, I couldn't get access to because people were worried about me. So I needed to get my own drugs from somewhere and bring them back to DC so that they would all start dealing with me when the city was dry. And that was the plan. And it started working, and I started trafficking through airports, which again is insanity, but that's what I did. This is also shortly post 9/11. So I got away with a lot. I just really tried hard to look like a stupid white frat kid. And that went far because I'd be put in line with
You
the
weren't you weren't what people were looking for, to be honest. And
no, it was no, no, I was stupid too. I buy one-way tickets day of, which automatically gets you put in the line with the 50 other Middle Eastern men. Like, that's exactly how it was. Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, there was no that racial profiling at that time was no, there was no hiding nothing like, "Oh, you're Middle Eastern, get over there." Like, it was terrible, and they would look at me when I got in that line, like, "What are you doing in this line, kid?" But they automatically had to because I was stupid about, how I, bought my ticket. I learned, I figured it out, but, um, I'm gonna for time's sake, I'm just gonna say there was an experience that happened on one of these runs where somebody died, and I don't wanna say I'm partly responsible, I do wanna say I could have acted faster, and he could still be alive, and the devastating part was 2 weeks later, his mother called me begging to know what happened, and it was a very classic movie scenario. We dropped the body at the ER and ran away, and I thought she was, uh I thought she was trying to entrap me or something, so I hung up on her, and it was one of my biggest regrets. A year later after I got sober, I tried to find her, I couldn't. Recently, I tried to find her, I couldn't, and so this book is kind of, really a letter to her, a message in a bottle, but that happened, and it terrified me to travel, so I had a lead on, a Russian mafia connection, and I was multiple times, like, "That's stupid, I'm not doing that." But when I got desperate with the agents and my sentencing date, I was like, "Well, I actually don't know this guy, so it would be easier to give intel on him, and he's, like, a good get for these guys, so let me do this." Um, it turns out he had the best meth I had ever had in my life, and I was already so wrecked by that point that I just ended up doing most of the product, and I owed, thousands to this really angry, gun-toting, supposedly mafia guy, like, that's what he was saying, and so, anyway, by the time I got to my sentencing, I, was what's a word stronger than dejected? Like, I just didn't feel like I should have existed, and, like, now I was too scared to rat on him because I saw the movies. What if they came after my family? What if they did this? What if they did that? So I was like, the best solution is for me to go to prison because I deserve it now because I didn't save this young man, and I hung up on the mother. And I don't think the fact that I'm I'm sitting currently. The fact that I'm sitting here telling you in a coherent way my story kind of implies that there is somewhat of a happy ending. And I don't believe it gives anything away by saying I did not go to prison, but I also did not rat on anybody. And if you are surprised by that statement, I am equally, if not infinitely more surprised because when I showed up to my sentencing date, the, I'm standing next to my court-appointed lawyer, this, like, heart of gold, overworked guy, and the federal prosecutor stands up and they ask this judge, "We want this case to be dismissed." And even the judge was like, "What? What are you talking about?" They're like, "We want this case to be dismissed," and then they dismissed it. And the court-appointed lawyer pulled me to a side room. He was like, "What what did you do?" I was like, I don't but I went to a bunch of tweakers. It's all conspiracy theories. They all think they can help you, but nobody can do shit. You know what?" He's like, I've been part of hundreds, if not thousands of cases. I've never seen that before." And I'm just like, I don't know." He's like, "Kid, you better get out of here, and I should never see you here again." So,
change your life, or you've been given. Oh yeah, like
yeah, and you would think I'd get sober then, but I lasted at least another 6 weeks out there before I really came to grips with the fact that I couldn't, stop using, and it's a touching story of how I actually got sober when I called my mother, which I'll save that for the book, but that's how I ended up, September 26th, 2004, calling my mother. And then, 2 weeks later, I slept for 2 weeks, and then I was in rehab with an outpatient program, and then I came out to LA, and thank God LA has some of the best recovery in the world. And then now because of the pandemic, people can, all these meetings are online, so people around the world are experiencing all kinds of recovery from all parts of the world, especially Los Angeles. So that's been a gift too.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the general what do you want to say, cliff notes?
That's the general, yeah, the synopsis, cliff notes, whatever you wanna.
Yeah, there's some darker, much darker moments, if not already some dark moments I shared, but there's some even darker ones that like you essentially, the immortality that a young 20-year-old thinks, or early 20s thinks that they have, none of those consequences will happen to me. Not only did they happen to me, but they happen to me times 1,000. Like it's idiotic what, young minds can think about, so
And
man,
I believe that we have like guiding angels or people looking out for us because it's all very similar situations. Definitely not to the extent of what you're talking about, but I think a lot of people who are young and gay and get caught up in that party scene, if
yeah.
had some sort of, thing with selling drugs or whatever, like, I think it's quite common for a lot of young gay
Oh,
people
it is.
to get put off. I've had a drug dealer partner for, not for as probably a long time like you, but I definitely did date someone who was a drug dealer, and
Oh, I like this.
so it's not an I didn't think it was uncommon. Um,
Well, for me,
get
I'm sorry if I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think that what for me the appeal to him was, the drugs were exciting. When you first do the party drugs, it's like, oh, or no, I should backtrack that. When you first go to when you go to the gay club for your first time, it is thrilling. It is like titillating. It is like, this is forbidden. This is amazing. And then you
mean hits kind of thing, yeah.
Exactly, and then you tried the drugs, but then the thing about the drug dealer was there was this whole other world that existed in the underbelly that was, to me, so thrilling, that so catapulted me out of this miserable life that I felt I had. Uh, Based upon, being raised Mormon and with a God that loathes me. And so, of course, so it lit me up, and I was like, I want to know all about that world. And so that's why, I went off with him the first couple months. And then when I started dealing, I hated, those dealers that would make you do a whole song and dance to get your drugs, or and everything revolved around. I hated that they had power over me. They could ruin the night. They could do, I hated them. I hated that they would do that. And I swore I would never do that. But then when I was, when I, the irony, I get, it's not ironic, but when I rose to the level of dealing that I had, which, while I'm under the investigator's umbrella, while I'm about to work with this mafia guy, like I was the number one. This is so weird. I'm not trying to brag about this, but like I was the guy, and the amount of power that one has over those around you, which ultimately has nothing to do with me and everything to do with the drug that I held access to. But I swore I was never going to be like those guys. So my number one thing, and maybe this is my Mormon stuff rubbing off, but I was like, I'm going to be so reliable and nice. Like, I'm not going to be an asshole and make these people do song and dance, but it's power.
You
Yeah.
don't realize.
Yeah, exactly. But it was the power of it all was alluring to somebody who felt so goddamn powerless his entire life, and to feel empowered and full and like I mattered, even though these people are looking at me for my drugs. But still, it's like celebrity. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
People.
yeah, when you feel like you're like invisible in your own life, and then you come in here and you're seen like as above these people in some way, it does have that thrill to it. I can
Oh,
understand.
absolutely. I promise you, fame, like for example, fame has nothing to do with Britney Spears, the person. It's all about what the fans are projecting onto her. Like who she is just another human being, but it's all about the fan experience. And that's what I've noticed and been aware of when I've been around these things and it coming my way, or going, or just observing it in other people. It has nothing to do with the person. If you really think about it, everything to do with what they mean to the fan, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it's literally like I said. There's the person, and it's your depiction of that person is what you're
Yeah.
getting in your mind, which then creates this, as you said, fandom and
Yeah.
see it, and it's like that collective. You're the collective, which creates, like I said, the view.
The mythology, or the, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So that's the story in as as short as I can tell.
Well, I think there's a lot of juiciness in there, and like I said, you've given us tidbits, but I think that for the viewers out there, the Good Little Drug Lord is the title. I know that you said it's currently in, you're talking to publishers at the moment, so tell us a little bit about that journey and your hopes for getting it out in 2025.
Well, yeah, I don't want to jinx it, so I'm not going to throw a day, but no, there's definite interest, uh, a lot of interest, and so it's trying to sort that part out. There's even talks about making it into a feature or a limited series, which is also very exciting. Um, but I don't want to say a date and then and not be the date and that kind of stuff. So. Um, I mean, I will say it is being published. Like that is for sure. Like your listeners will know the date when I have the date because I'm either going to come back or you're going to tell them and be like, remember that guy?
Yes.
Well, you can read that book now. So it is coming. If it's 2025, that would make me the happiest person ever. So we will see. That's what I'm pushing for. So we will see on that. So there's definitely TBD, more to come. Just getting the appetite wet for this one.
Beautiful. And then if it does end up turning into a feature, who would play you in them?
Because I would definitely set it at 22. What's a good actor? Y- I would look at it as an opportunity to get um a a director who has a following, a director that people know. That way, it would give an opportunity for lesser known actors, but also very capable actors to play these roles of these very vibrant and very different characters. Uh, but I can't think of just off the top of my head as like a fun game. Like I can't think of a I how old is Austin Butler? He's like late 20s, right? No, he's not.
Well, how many times these days do they put like 40-year-olds, teenagers in
I know that, but can I just throw that out there that I just said like, hey, what about Austin Butler, like this super attractive, like amazing actor? No, I didn't mean it like that, by the way. I
first? Austin Butler. I yeah, yeah. Good Little Druglord.
Oh, it just that moment there's like there's that Love Is Blind show that we have in the States. I know they have all over the world, but one of the
Yeah.
yeah, and you know the premise of it, but the girl was like, "Yeah, I look like Megan Fox," and oinked, and then they meet in person, and the guy was like, "She is not Megan Fox." I'm not saying I'm Austin Butler. I couldn't think of a young actor. He just popped into my head. That's what I'm saying. you know.
Well, before we leave, what's if someone was to read this book, which they're going to be able to do, hopefully again in 2025, what would be one of the major messages that you would love for someone who maybe a young gay man who's at 22 reading this book, but and they're coming through?
Yeah.
What one message do you think you'd love for them to take away from the book?
One hope that I have that I did not touch on already is, the role my mother plays in my book is a central thematic role, because, we go on this journey, as I was said already when I came out to my Mormon mother, she was like, "Do you have AIDS?" But we go on this journey through this, and we end up in a place. I mean, it ends when I get sober, but we cut to now, 2 years ago when I married my husband, my very Mormon mother walked me down the aisle.
Wow.
And my hope, and because also this is this message in a bottle to this one mother that I don't know where she is, and just desperately is probably 20 years later grieving her son who does not know what happened, why he's dead. Um, I really, whatever relationship you may have with your mother, I really hope it inspires you just to give them a hug or call them. And so far with the readers, without me saying that, that's what they come back with. And um, as damaging as these maternal relationships can be. And, when you read my memoir, you'll see case in point. There's also journeys that we go on personally through becoming these bigger persons than our parents. And we evolve past them to the point where I was able to find some level of forgiveness. And ironically, of course, I know this is kind of cliche, but it's a true thing. Once I found that forgiveness, the active forgiveness for my mother, uh, she changed into the person that I needed her to be my entire life, but only after I did it for myself. And that wasn't, and my goal to doing it for myself was not to get her to change. I had to let her go entirely. So that's, if anything, that's really what I hope this is about. This is at the core. This is about mothers and sons, in redemption, my own personal redemption, obviously with the things that happened out there, but redemption in our relationship. She voted against me in Prop 8, which in California was, she basically said I should not legally be able to marry who I want to marry. But she was, again, ignorant, naive. She didn't know what she was doing. So the church just told her to do that.
Yeah.
But that was just another example on the journey that we've been on. But again, now, she'll probably come on the book tour with me because people after reading it are going to be so fascinated by this woman. Because this is the last thing I'll say about that, because I tried to take our relationship on an arc that leads to this final moment on my 23rd birthday where a lot happened, but ultimately it climaxes in this phone call to my mother where I literally just said mom, but I said it was so broken in such a way that this mama bear knew exactly. It was almost like she was unconsciously waiting for this call. She just said, "Where are you?" You know? So, and she came with my dad and la la la, you'll read it. But that's what I hope. Somebody walks away and, wants to hug their mother physically or figuratively, whatever. There's a lot of healing that can happen there.
A lot of healing and a powerful read, and I look forward to getting the opportunity to read it at some point soon.
Yeah. Yeah. We could talk about it. Actually, maybe you can read it and then we could talk about it.
Let us do that. That's the plan. Yeah, we'll have you back. And so, Sean, you heard it first. He's coming back.
Yes.
After
I love that.
Awesome.
They're playing a set. Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Sean. Appreciate your time and sharing, the tidbits that you shared with us. How can people find you, follow you, like see what you're doing? Any other roles coming up that people can see you on?
I just finished 911, like I said, so we're hoping that leads to more on the show because things could happen there. Everybody, I tried to post all, the writing, the art, and the acting. I try to make it easy for folks and just leave it in one place, which is my Instagram, and they can find everything they want there at Sean Hemeon, SeanHemeon, or likewise, SeanHemeon.com. Yeah, okay, great. So you can link the Instagram and my website, and people can go check it out and, see the updates on all three.
Beautiful. Amazing. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I look forward to having you back once the book is out and I've had a read of it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Great. Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. And for everyone out there, I'll be back next week with another episode of the Queer Quest podcast. Until then, always remember that you've got this and I've got you. Bye for now.